We are here at WetPets in McMurray, PA, and we're here with Brian, all right?
Good to see you, Russ.
Thanks again for spending the time. And what Brian's going to do is he's going to give us our own personal tour of how many gallon tank is this?
This is 460 gallon tank.
Man, you know, it's funny, like we were talking, you can tell you've got the experience, right? Because 460 with this height kind of thing, it's
depth.
I drool every time that I hear
Yeah, it's a nice dimension too. We made it visual viewing from three sides too, which is unique instead of just having it from up against the wall.
Sure. So now tell me first of all, okay, why would you have a show tank like this in your room? I mean, you know,
in the store?
Yeah, I'd put it in my house. Right?
Yeah, I wish I did have it in my house, to be honest with you. What we were trying to do with this is just to show the customers what a finished product of a reef tank would look like, and show them some of the varieties that they could get in and how they are compatible with each other, the different colors, shapes, and also to show some adult corals instead of getting in these little frags that they always see in smaller pieces, to show how much more detail, just like fish, that a lot of them get as they get older. So we just wanted to show off a bunch of different stuff in here that we can get in at any time at the store.
And that you do, right? I mean, it's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you.
See, now I look at it, even the way that you have the rock work laid out.
We did, thank you. Yeah, we took a lot of time. The rock I have in here is called Iriangyra, which I can't get all the time, but I get consistently throughout the year here and there. It's one of my favorite types of rock as far as the structure, the honeycombing in it. It's not a real dense rock like Florida rock is, or even Fiji for that matter. It has a lot of holes, and so the nice thing is it is a little bit more money than the other rock, but average size of the piece actually weighs less because there's a lot of holes and tunnels in it, so it almost is a wash as far as the price. But it allows you to put a lot of different corals in there in those nooks and crannies and let them grow real nice out of there. So
well, even like the flow, right? Like when you look down below, you see there's just the flow off the sand.
Well, what we did too, and you kind of want to do in a reef tank structure, that important in any structure of live rock, is not putting in large pieces right on the sand, so you don't have any dead areas and anaerobic bacteria building where detritus or excess food would settle. So we always try to use smaller pieces on the bottom and instead of bigger pieces on them, so there's an elevation. It looks nice, and it is, you know, functional too, to get that current going everywhere. So it's what we try to do when we set up every tank for ourselves and our customers.
Okay, and so for the new viewers out there, which a lot of you are, keep that in mind.
Yeah, it's really important. It really is.
Keep it off the sand.
Yes, keep the bigger pieces off. And then what we try to do is also try to make some peaks with some of the height of the rock for a reason. Some corals don't like as much current as others, so we want some barriers in there to set some slower, you know, like mushrooms and certain pieces do not like a high current, so you set them under, and also not as much light, so you want to have some overhangs as well to set some semi-shadowed areas for some pieces that don't like as much light, and some barriers for pieces that don't like as much current. So it really helps you out doing it that way.
So 400 and how many gallon?
460 gallon.
Okay, so 460 gallon.
Yeah.
If I'm designing this tank, we talked rock.
Yes.
Okay.
You want to know the poundage for that tank?
Actually, no.
Okay.
Well, put it this way: you could use the pounds roughly.
Yeah. What we like doing in our store is try to start out with 1 pound per gallon.
Okay.
And then from there, most coral you buy has rock on it. It's attached to rock, so you almost build up to about 1.5 to 2 pounds per gallon ultimately, which is where you really want to be.
Okay.
So.
And now, what about when you were, you know, you look at this tank, and is there any particular reason why it's not very deep?
This tank in particular, for 2 reasons, and I'll be honest with you. One of them is you got to watch going too deep with some tanks, because you do want that light penetration. The other reason why is this was actually from our previous store, and at that store I was renting instead of, now we own this store. They wouldn't let us remove windows to get the tank in, so I had to measure the door and figure out what height would turn sideways and fit through the door, and 27 inches was
it.
So I wish I could have gone 29, would have been nice, or even 30. Deeper than 30 you can do it, especially nowadays with the LED lights. But I think 30 inches, 25 4 to 30 is a real nice height on a reef tank.
See, that always bothers me because you put your arms down there.
It is. You get the armpit wet, pull it out, and it runs down your side. I think every reef hobbyist has had that happen.
Exactly. That's why every time I come here, I'm like, oh, I would kill for this size. Right here,
It is. But you need to do step stools and stuff, especially as you see, I elevated this. Most common stands are 30 inches.
Right.
We get in custom stands from our cabinetry guy that he can build them any height you want. He does do a standard 30 and then a standard 36, but he can build them 42, 48, whatever. I personally like a tank up higher where you don't have to bend down to look at it. It just looks more impressive.
Yeah,
but again, when you do that, you need step stools to get in. But you know what though, when you set it up properly and have really good filtration, you don't need to go in there too much, and you don't even want to go in a reef tank too much. You really don't want to mess with it.
Yeah, that's my problem.
So it is.
My hands are,
it's the worst enemy of a reef tank's the human hand, I think.
Yeah,
so.
I would vouch for it, I guarantee.
Yeah.
Guarantee.
Yeah.
Now, how long is this tank first of all?
This is 6 foot long, 4 foot wide, 27 inches high.
Okay, so now it's 6 foot long. You got to have a serious pump.
You do. I actually have 2 pumps running the tank.
Okay.
We have a 2,400 gallon per hour mag drive, which runs one of those outlets, the far corner.
Okay.
And then the other 3 outlets, which I teed off with a Y, I have running a Blue Line 80 liter per minute pump, running that pressure pump.
Wow,
so,
80 liters per minute. That's
it's cranking it pretty good.
You can see it down this side.
It is.
Right?
It's cranking it. I mean, you'll see the 6 foot depth of where I have them aimed. You'll even see flow all the way down here on the edges.
Oh, very much so. Like when you look at even the yellow Fuji, right?
That's right. Oh yeah, it's doing well. That one's actually ready to split. As you can tell, that'll become 2 heads right there. It's just getting ready.
That's my favorite.
Same here. I've always liked them too. I actually want to get one even brighter yellow than that, which they're out there. You and I both know that. And I had a couple in here, and I normally never ever sell out of here, but I have a couple really good customers that came in from far away and begged me and pleaded, so I did. And now I need to get more back in there.
I know, it's got the good news, bad news. I'm helping you out. That's good. That's right. Okay, so let's talk lighting, right?
Okay.
Now, obviously, as we talked about, I'm jealous. Okay, just a quick peek, right? We know that we got LEDs above this bed.
That's one thing. Now, I told you the tank's been up, it'll be 7 years, but I did just 6 months ago switch to the LED lighting.
Although, let's clarify that. In the other tanks, you've been LED for a long time.
Yes, I have. I started out with the tanks that I sell out of with the LEDs because I didn't want to risk. It's been over 2 years.
I just laugh because you know it's starting to steamroll now. And
oh, it is. And actually, the lights I have over the other tanks were just a hood from a 28 Nano that my buddy Steve at JBJ, who had hooked me up with them, and I suspended them up in there as a trial run, and they did so well that then I decided to go with these here. These are actually Eco-Ray brand name above this tank, which I'm very happy with. They have an Eco-Ray 60 and an Eco-Ray 112. I have 6 112s above this tank.
And does the 112 mean anything?
It's a 112 watt light. The other one's 60 watt. And they are a dual cord. You can order them with a dual cord or without. And I definitely prefer the dual cord because you can have the blues on or the daylights, which I can show you here in a minute. But what's nice about the LEDs, I was just telling a customer this the other day. Prior to them being on there, I had 2 6 foot long Coral Life combos on there, and what they had is each strip had 3 250 watt double-ended HQI metal halides, and had 2 96-watt power compacts.
Right.
So I had a total of 6 250-watt halides and 4 96-watt PCs running the tank, which was...
So your power bill was going,
oh yeah,
little meter
it was
spinning,
pushing over 30 amps before. And now that I switched to these, I'm doing about a little over 7 amps. I think it's 7.2 amps over the whole tank. So it's just incredible. I believe the savings is roughly in the neighborhood of $4,000 a year just in lighting I'll save.
I mean, so that warrants the investment.
Oh, that alone paid for the lights in 1 year for me. And then on top of that, no bulb changes for 10 to 15 years.
Right.
And the halides get expensive. You change them once a year, and the compacts you change twice a year.
Right.
That stuff adds up, and you do that for none of that for 10 to 15 years. It's huge. That alone will pay for the lights a couple times over just in bulb changes.
Exactly. That, and to me, finding the time to take it out, clean it off.
And then nobody does do it as often as they should, and they're running a wrong spectrum because they're letting the lights stay old, and it's just not a good idea.
That's right.
The nice thing about the LEDs too, on the older style, the halides and the compacts, they're actually losing their quality of spectrum every day that they're on.
Right.
These are perfect till the day they go out and change.
So it's on or off.
Yes.
You're good or bad.
I love it.
Yeah, that makes it easy.
Yep. And then on top of all that, we love it because the heat factor, it's practically nothing. The heat goes above. It doesn't come down from the LED lights. So I still have a chiller on this tank because it's already been hooked up from when I had the halides, but it never kicks on anymore since I switched, and it used to run constantly.
Okay, so now obviously you probably had a power meter.
We do. We checked this out prior. Actually, a good friend of mine who owns Living Sea Aquarium in Chicago, Mike Sergi, he used a kilowatt meter and checked it out. Now what the deal is, these lights, the ones we're selling, the Eco Rays, you normally want to place them in a perfect world 24 inches above the surface of the water, so it fans out nice. I have them in here at 16 inches just because that's how my canopy was built. They recommend anywhere, don't go less than 15. So 15 to 24 is okay, 24 is perfect. And what it is, believe it or not, you would think the closer you are, you would use less lighting, but you get more of a spot. So when you go closer, it means you actually just need more lights if you can't go higher because you'll lose the coverage of fanning out. Yes.
So before you got them, did you have a par meter or what?
Actually, a buddy of mine who owns the Living Sea Aquarium in Chicago, he used the kilowatt meter to check everything and see the par rating and all that. And what we're getting...
Okay, so hold on. The kilowatt was for the power, right?
Yes. Yeah, we're going to rate the power, the drawing of the power.
Okay, so he rated the power.
And he did have a par meter. When I was in Chicago, one of our backer shows, they had this exact light set up. Okay. They had the light suspended 24 inches above the surface of the water. And had a 24-inch deep tank. And it still was hitting up to 700 par at 24 inches deep. It's phenomenal.
Now, have you ever had any issues with too much light?
I would say you could if you put on too many over the tank, but I haven't yet, just using recommended factory specs of what you should have over so many square foot tank, depending on height and everything else, how high they are and how deep the tank is. So I really haven't had. One thing that did happen when I switched these, even from all those metal halides and compacts I told you, when I did switch them, I had the slightest bit of bleaching on just a handful of corals. Didn't hurt them or kill them. They just kind of bleached out a little bit. Within 2 weeks, they were back. I have, which are actually pulled in right now, but I have some bubble rose bubble anemones. They actually pulled in under the rock and then slowly worked their way back out.
They were like, whoa,
so it's definitely the intensity's there. The people that have halides and they're old school and think that there's no way these LEDs could give the same wattage or spectrum, and
and I'm part of that, right? In my mind, like I'm always kind of like, listen, we know halides are successful. LEDs, you know, you have some people saying, they're good. Some people say, oh, I don't get the color. Like, but you look at yours.
I think the color is better than any light you could put on a tank. Now, here's the beautiful thing about this particular brand. I can't speak for other brands because I don't know much other than the ones I like, but this one, the reason why people also say, well, yeah, it looks nice, but you get the tissue growth out of the corals and all this and the health. The daylights on these are 6700K, which is best for tissue growth. And you wouldn't even notice that to look at the beautiful color in here. But you'll see it when I put in just the daylights, how yellow the tank looks without the blues. So I'm going to go over there now.
Try it out.
We'll start with just the daylights.
Yeah, look at that.
Now that's just the daylights on.
Yep.
And then we'll go with just the blues.
Yeah.
And the blues, I think, without a doubt, they're prettier than any blue actinic light you have over a tank. It's just unbelievable.
Very nice. Look at the zoanthids.
Oh, they're incredible. Zoanthids and some of your different fish too, but especially the zoanthids and the mushrooms, phenomenal with the blue lights.
Yep.
So, yeah.
And then when you look at that,
yeah, it still gives you great, perfect color.
yes, very much so.
So yeah, we're very happy with it.
And now, how many months have LEDs been on?
I believe it's going to be close to 6 months, which I think is plenty long enough. Now, I have other friends and some of my distributors that have actually had them on longer than that, and they actually are growing some corals in actually to sell. So frags and stuff. So they're actually getting coral growth phenomenal out of it.
Well, I know Todd had planned on Reef System Squirrel.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
He's actually in the wintertime, you got a supplement, right?
Sure.
And he's actually going to be using LEDs.
Is he? I would. He'll be successful.
Yeah.
Because I've seen it. I mean, they're definitely proven now.
Yeah. You can't get past that look.
No, I think it's just the best quality light. And the other last thing, I didn't bring it up. I don't know if you could catch it on film or not, but it actually gives the shimmer like a halide does also.
Right.
Compacts don't do that.
You see it on the ground.
Yep. T5s don't do that. So, and it's because of the height we're putting them at, and because they're so intensity, the high par. So that's one thing you won't lose either. So I can't yet to find one thing negative about them. If you had to pick one thing, it'd be the price, but we've already talked, they are a little pricey, but you pay that off less than a year in most situations just with the electric bill alone, let alone no chiller and no, no bulb changes.
That's right. Yeah, so, bulb heat and everything.
Yes.
Very good. So let's talk filtration now.
Yes.
We talked about the 2 pumps. Now, what do you have them kind of? What do you got filtered?
What I have, and I chose for the tank, the Ecosystems Refugium.
Okay.
And I have the Pro on there, which Ling Sai is a good friend of mine.
Yes.
And I convinced our store and myself and my family they're the best filters you can run on a fish tank, whether it's fresh or saltwater. It's one of the only filters that'll help remove nitrates. Most of them just remove ammonia and nitrites. And I think this tank speaks for itself just for the quality. I'm getting fish are breeding in here. My Borneo Cardinals, I've raised successfully babies off them. I actually have a baby in there that I saved out of the tank.
I steal a picture of.
Oh, did you?
I'm like, what is that little period floating around?
Yeah, I came in here the other day and there was 3 or 4 swimming in the urchins. I stuck some spiny urchins in to hopefully she'd spit them out, and she did. And some fish still got some of them, but I was able to save a few out. That's the second or third time I've done that. And then just earlier today, the Bartlett's Anthias from Marshall Island were in here spawning, which I didn't catch on film, but I hopefully will in the near future. But the system, we just grow the Helimeta or Caulerpa in there, and it just grows like crazy. And what's real nice, not only is it growing it to help the tank, but then when it gets to a point where it's so needs thatched in there, take it out and feed it to your fish, and it just is fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say, something like that you could probably use, and I haven't quite figured it out, but to have an automatic feeding system.
Yeah, that would be very nice.
Man, you look at that, it's a win-win across.
It is. The whole thing with the Miracle Mud in there, which I think there's no substrate comparable to the actual Miracle Mud in your Refugium. It just provides so many good nutrients, vitamins, amino acids to your tank that it's just you can keep fish in here, mandarin blennies and some copper bands and different fish that people say are very delicate, and they are. But they seem to do very well in this tank because of the Refugium. Water changes, I've been getting away with, in this tank for as heavily loaded as it is. I mean, for a reef tank, I don't know if they've showed on film or not, but I have a lot of fish in this tank. Even though it is a big tank, you don't normally put the amount or the size of fish that I have in this tank. And yet I still only do water changes in here every couple months, maybe about 15-20%. And sometimes I even go beyond that if we're just too busy in the store to get to it. So I just love the Refugium ecosystem.
So now what size Refugium is that?
This one here is a 3616, which he does his Refugiums in numbers, and it's very simple. It's the size of the unit. This is 36 inches long, 16 inches wide. He has a 2410, 3012, 3016, 3616, 16 all the way up to 42 inches.
Any size you need.
Yeah. I actually have his 4224 running my, or I'm sorry, 4824 running my invert system for the corals and inverts that I sell here in the store. And it really helps keep those healthy and nice too.
Yeah, I know that, like I mentioned, we're going to be doing another interview with Link, so it'll be interesting on his take.
On the he's a good guy, and he's very knowledgeable, especially when it comes to filtration and stuff like this.
Okay, so you have the Refugium. Tell me the flow.
Okay.
If you're a drop of water.
What we're doing in here is basically what's pulling out of this. Now I do have an additional sump over here. Okay. And the only reason why it is, when we did this tank 7 years ago was prior to them having the Refugiums available. Sure. So we'd kind of makeshift made one of our own with a friend of ours, Mike Pellets, two brothers and I, and it ran very well. But it actually finally started leaking. It was an older 40-gallon breeder tank, so we just put the real one in there, which I've always wanted to do to begin with in here. And it's actually made a difference in the tank for some reason, adding the real one in there. But what we're taking out of there is the main blue line pumps running out of here. So we're running 80 gallons, 80 liters per minute through the Refugium.
And so water's coming from your tank straight?
Yeah, now what it is, it basically flows out of the tank. There's a center overflow box in there. It's flowing out of there, and I have it split. Part of it's running into the other sump, and part of it's running into here. Yes, the other sump I just have a G3 skimmer, Euro skimmer in there.
Well, you see, that alone says a lot for this because, again, when you look at this, it's a relatively small skimmer.
Yes.
And you have it split off. And
yes, it is. I mean, again, it goes back to the Refugium. You don't need a tremendous, like a 6-foot tall skimmer on this thing.
Sure.
Now, another thing I do run on the other sump that I've been very impressed with, and he's another friend of ours, is Julian Sprung.
Yes.
He has the two little fishies.
Yes.
And I'm running the Phosban reactor on this sump too.
Right, with the bio pellets,
with the new bio pellets. Yeah, I'm very big fan of those. They help lower nitrates as well as bringing down the phosphates very quickly.
And now, if I remember correctly, you were dosing with vodka, right?
Yes, we are. We just started experimenting with that, and I've been very pleased with that. Since I started with the vodka, and I was leading up to that, I was telling you I was doing a water change with a Refugium maybe every couple months. We've stopped doing water changes completely, and this has been going on for about 8, maybe 10 months. And we started with the vodka, adding it to the tank, which we started out at a ratio of 0.5 milliliters per 100 gallons.
So probably not.
Yeah, it's not much at all for how big the tank is. And we do that for 7 days, and then we double that and add 1.0 milliliters per 100. Do that for 7 days and add 1.5. We just keep adding 0.5 every 7 days.
Really?
Until we hit our target, which is the nitrates being zero. They hit zero in this tank within 4 months. And it's been holding zero without doing a water change now for a good 4 months.
Okay, so now for the bio pellets then, is the hope to stop dosing the vodka?
Well, I want to see if I could start pulling back on that, even though it's showing no side effects whatsoever, just as a test. But still, even with the vodka, the phosphates could still be an issue, and that's really what I mainly have it on there for, is the phosphates.
Got it.
Yes.
And so why would you choose your bio pellets, for example, over like some kind of fair compound?
Well, the thing I like about them is, and I know a lot of people that have used the regular phosphate remover material, it's kind of powdery, and a lot of people seem to get some loose and coming in their tank, and it just gets clogged up, and it's just a lot of different problems over the years. I've known my customers have told me, and I've run into myself using it. They're a bigger bead made of almost like a polymer, like a plastic, and that I just like them much better. It's much more self-containing, don't have any problems with it, and that's the main reason why I still would stick with that. They seem to last a lot longer too.
Very much so.
Yes.
And the one thing that I do know, again, one of the personal viewers have, is they like the fact that you can't overdose. So you can load as many as you want, and if those little bacteria stick onto them,
you can, and that is true to a degree.
Go ahead.
I spoke with Julian personally about this, because I did have one customer that had a little bit of a problem in the beginning, when it was for 2 reasons. he didn't have the right flow through his phosphate reactor. There's a different flow when you're using the old media as opposed to the new media.
Okay.
And also, if you started out in a tank that you just bought a brand new phosphate reactor and you're just starting all this, if your nitrates are very high when you start this, you need to add about 1/4 of the dose to start with and then build up like every couple weeks.
Really?
Yes. If not, you sometimes get a milky cloudiness in a tank and you can see your fish coming up breathing heavy.
Okay.
So it is kind of important to follow his exact instructions that come with it. Yeah.
That's why they put them there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But how many of us don't read?
Yeah.
Right?
So there is a certain ml you want to max out per size of the tank and per size of the unit, because he has the 150 and the 550.
Okay, so. Very good. And I never realized that because again, that was one of the things where I know personally. Yeah. It just worked out good that nobody ever complained.
Yes,
right?
That's right.
And I didn't overdose.
Yeah, and it does show that it's far and few between that it would even happen, even if you didn't follow the instructions to a T. But still, you should.
Sure. Yep. And now, what kind of pump drives the phosphate reactor?
Okay, on that, I just have a little power head. You don't need a lot of flow in there. I even have the 550 going, and I don't want to say something wrong, but I think we only have a 600 mini jet running it.
Okay, so
mini jet 600. I think it does 180 gallons per hour or something.
So again, you don't have a mag?
No. You can. I believe you could run up to a 250 mag on certain sizes, but you don't need a lot.
But still,
around 200.
You're just tumbling, right?
Yes, that's right. You're tumbling. That's exactly right.
And talk about the actual plumbing. And when I say plumbing, I mean you're using a lot of flexible PVC.
I am. You just said it. The flexible Schedule 40 PVC is a great product. I mean, because it's just as durable as regular Schedule 40, but a lot more forgiving when it comes time to actual plumbing your tank. And other than it being easier to use, you remove all them harsh 90-degree angles, which you try to avoid completely in any plumbing system. So it gives you nice sweeping drops on your drains.
For our new viewers, why are we avoiding the harsh 90s?
Well, every time you have a 90, you're creating an area where stuff could build up in, first of all. Second of all, you're restricting your gallons per hour. You take a pump that starts out at 700 gallons per hour, and by the time you push a 4 or 5 foot head, you might be down to 550 gallons per hour. Then you add a couple 90s in there and you're down to 400.
Sure.
Not to mention it creates a lot of back pressure on pumps, which shortens the life of them. So it just goes on and on, the reasons why you want to try to avoid that.
Now, do you also recommend that for the drain?
I do, drain and return. We actually use Schedule 40 in the whole entire store, my brothers and I did. And you just glue it and treat it just like you would Schedule 40 pipe. Using PVC glue, it hardens just as well, seals just as well, but it's a lot more forgiving, like I said, and reducing all those harsh bends.
Right. And I know for somebody like me, it's a great thing.
It is a great thing.
You know how they say measure twice, not once? Well, mine is measure 4 times and collect twice, right?
I think most people are that way, but you're right, it is hard.
I like that. And I also saw you had a UV sterilizer on a reef tank?
We do. I know a lot of people say you don't want them on a reef, and everything I say here isn't that I feel I'm right and everybody's wrong, but I know my way has worked for me for the last 20 years very successfully at that. So any bad bacteria that goes in a tank is usually going to be free swimming or free circulating, whereas any of your good beneficial bacteria is going to grow on a surface area. So the UV is only going to grab anything free swimming or free circulating in the water. I've used them on every invert, every coral tank I've ever had set up in the store for the last 20 years, on all my customers' tanks for the last 20 years, and I've only had great results. To me, in a reef tank especially, you want a UV because you can't treat the tank with any medication if you have a disease go in there. So there are some out in the market, but they're just not as effective. So that to me even puts more stress on you having a UV on the tank to eliminate that factor.
And now what kind of UV sterilizers on here?
I love the Aqua Ultraviolet brand name. That's all I use everywhere and all my customers. That's what I sell in the store. It's what I have in the store using on all my systems.
And why do you like it so much?
There's a lifetime warranty for one on any. Now there are wear item parts like bulbs you're going to have to change, but lifetime warranty as long as you own the unit, which I just think anybody that has a lifetime warranty, it's a good product.
Sure.
Two, it's made out of Schedule 40 PVC and not this 1/16 of an inch wall stuff for the actual main chamber that the UV sits in, which a lot of units are. And I've actually had older units, which I'm not going to bring up the brand name, but in the past I've actually burned a hole after 5 or 6 years of the bulbs burning through, wear real thin on the main housing. You won't have that happen.
And see, to me, that's one of the nice things about like these videos, especially for the new viewers.
Yes.
Right? They learn from your mistakes.
Oh yeah,
right?
it's taken years and years of learning the things that we know here and that you've learned. And it is, other than a warranty and that, they claim that they're the highest quality medical grade bulb that they're using, the germicidal bulb in there, which I found to be true as well. And then also the variety they give you. They have hang-on units, they have barbed inflow units, and then they also have compacts, regular T5s, and they also have double-ended HQI metal halides.
So the whole spectrum.
It just gives you just about, and it goes up to any wattage you need. I have some units downstairs running our big systems that are 400 watt double-ended HQIs that run a 3,000 gallon fish system. So and it goes up from there.
And I was going to say, I remember being relatively small too.
They are. That's what's nice. I used to have, when we first opened the store 20 years ago, we had an old Aquanetic system which no longer exists, but the same UV that was running the same system was literally 5 foot tall, 4 foot wide, 4 foot is 4 by 4 by 5, and it had 6 110 watt giant bulbs in there that you had they were so big you couldn't, it would hit the ceiling. We had to tilt it, slide the bulbs out, and all this hassle. And now this unit's literally, which I think you have footage of it somewhere in our filter room, it's about a foot long.
Exactly. It's amazing.
So and then they do UVs for ponds too.
So
for the green water and for parasites. So.
Yeah, because that's one thing you're big on here, right?
Oh yeah.
Ponds.
Yes.
So that'll be a different episode.
Sure.
Kind of. How to, right? So let's talk in general. It's a mixed tank, right?
It is. It's predominantly right now a soft coral tank, which I have a lot of different leathers and different soft corals, and some zoanthids and some mushrooms in there. I do have clams in there as well, but I am going to slowly start adding some large polyp stonies in there, maybe some torch corals, some frog spawns, some brain corals, some lobophilias, and different things. That's my next step. I wasn't going to add them because I was planning on putting a bunch of little pygmy angels in here, which people say they're reef safe, and they are to a degree, but they seem to pick on those meatier, large polyp stony
looks like a nice fillet, right?
Yeah, so I held off, and now I decided I do have a mated pair of Bellis angels in here, which you don't see too often. And I don't believe they're going to hurt them, which I'm taking a chance. I started putting just a couple Lobos and different things in here, and they have not hurt them at all. They've been in there about a month or so, so I think I'm going to start slowly adding some more stuff in.
Now, LPS, right? It's like, to me, I personally like the soft and LPS.
Yes.
But you also have the SPS kind of guys who are SPS focused.
In the near future, I plan on doing just a freestanding SPS show tank in here as well. Yeah, just all SPS.
So no plans for this one?
Not in here. I don't think I'm going to go that diverse with it. But
the mixed garden, right? That's too mixed, right?
Yeah, so I think the LP, I'm going to show a tank in here, the LPS, soft corals and mushrooms and zoanthids and clams.
Sure.
And then we're going to do an all SPS tank.
Very good. So the clams, what kind of clams you got?
I have some AAA grade Maximas in here.
Oh, no, you just said AAA grade. What the heck does that mean?
Well, they start out at just a standard Maxima, and then an A grade Maxima, double A grade, and then triple.
And what do you get for the extra grade?
It depends on the size. Like a 4 to 5 inch AAA grade in my store would probably go for about $249 for about a 4 inch.
Really?
Yeah.
And
Maxima. Croceas I get in double and triple A grade for probably $149 for the same size.
And What's the difference in quality between?
You'll see the difference on the footage. The pattern is way more intense and intricate on a Maxima, and the intensity of color is, as far as I'm concerned, it is. And I think the viewers will see that on film too. So that's the main difference.
And I see these ones over here. Now what about
these are also Maximas. All these are. And you can see a variety of different color and patterns in these. The Maximas, I mean the Croceas, I actually have around the bend. Okay. But I think you got some footage of it earlier.
And now, do you do any feeding or anything like that?
Actually, I don't, because of the Refugium. If you didn't have a Refugium, you'd probably have to target feed them. It's weird with clams. I found that they're good. You don't have to target feed until they hit about 4 inches, and then you should feed them based over with some of your coral phytoplankton and even mysis shrimp or brine shrimp. Under 4 inches, they don't seem to need that. Just your standard iodide, strontium, and anything else you're adding to the tank's enough, along with the photosynthesis.
And softies, what kind of softies do you have?
I have a huge array of them in there. I have some Nephthia corals, some yellow leathers, Tonga leathers, green leathers, some green Rasta leather, green finger leathers, some toadstools, some umbrella leathers. I have a really good array in this tank of them. And then I have some fuzzy mushrooms, some metallic mushrooms, striped mushrooms, spotted mushrooms, different zoanthids, colors and species in there. Some cabbage leather I have as well. And then some just standard green buttons. I actually do, and it's one of the stonies I started in there. I have the Australian Duncan Samelia coral. I'm a big fan of them. That's a coral I'd recommend to anybody. I mean, they're hardy, they're colorful, they grow well, they're not a super aggressive coral. I just think it's a great coral. A little bit pricey because it's from Australia, but they're hardy, so you won't be really afraid to spend the money on it.
They even have the greens, the purple.
They do. It's just the and they have the branching or the standard multi-head. It's just a great coral.
Okay, so now I see basically green star polyps. How do you get them not to spread everywhere, right? Because I actually use them all to cover the back of the tank.
They do, and that's where I'm actually going to start feeding some and grow, hopefully, that whole back wall with some of those and some xenia, I hope. And that is kind of the areas you want to do, and you got to be careful with them because they can take off on you. Basically, it's just like gardening. You're going to have to trim and thatch some of that in some cases. I've been pretty lucky in here that it hasn't gotten away from me.
I look at it and it's nice and it's flowing. And it's not
doing well. It's staying self-contained.
Yes, very much so.
I've been lucky with that because it can happen, just like you said.
And now, as far as like your softies in general, what's your husbandry techniques? You know, you had mentioned
pretty simple on those. What I like, and it's why for the novice they're good starter, and that's kind of why I started out this tank this way, because your average customer starting out, I wanted to show still an easier coral tank to do, but show how pretty it could still be. Other than some corals growing out of hand, which you can't clip them, reattach them to another piece of rock and relocate them, or relocate them to a completely different tank, or give them to a friend or whatever. There's not much, and it's nice about the soft corals, almost all of them can touch each other, so as they're growing and they start touching, they don't sting each other nearly as much as some of the SPS and even the LPS corals do. So it's another nice feature of a soft coral.
So now on your tank, Brian, what are you doing to supplement it? Feeding and all that fun stuff?
Well, the most important thing out of any reef tank we feel is the calcium levels, keeping them constant. We keep our levels where they should be by using Julian Sprung Sea Balance. And or B-Ionics.
So they're two-part kind of?
They are. It's a two-part system. One part's calcium, the other part's your alkalinity. And the way that works is, and for instance, I have a lot of customers come in and I'll say, how's your calcium? They say, oh, it's always good. I never even have to add any, but that's actually the worst thing you could hear. It means their calcium is staying suspended at 450. It's never getting absorbed, which they have to be absorbing it to live and thrive. So what you do is, the reason why that happens is that means their alkalinity isn't high enough. So your calcium will not go to solution until your alkalinity hits at least 300 or higher. As soon as it does, it puts your calcium to solution and gets absorbed by the corals. But when it does get absorbed and goes to the solution, it brings down your alkalinity, and pH. So you just keep like a seesaw battle. So they came out with a two-step product of calcium and alkalinity, which works fantastic.
I was going to say, I know one of our sponsors, Bulky Supply, same thing, they have their two-part, which
and there's a lot of other two-parts out there. A lot of people are doing it now, and they all work pretty good as far as I'm concerned.
And so for this one, though, you're using Julian's product.
Yeah, I love Julian's product.
And are you doing any strontium or anything like that? I
am. That's basically what the calcium is, pretty much their genetic makeup, so you're going to have to add that to keep them alive and healthy. But as far as feeding them, you need to do a food source, and we use phytoplankton, which we use Julian Sprung's marine snow, or DT's phytoplankton, and we use strontium, molybdenum is one part, and we do a iodine on another day. Now, what a lot of labeling on the strontium and the iodide, they will say this is your dose weekly, add once a week this dose, but I tell my customers, and I do it here, I cut it in half and do twice a week. So I try to set up where I'm adding iodide half dose on Monday and Wednesday, and strontium and molybdenum on Tuesday and Thursday, and then adding calcium as needed. And then I'll do like phytoplankton on Friday.
And so one time a week with the phytoplankton?
I do. Sometimes I do twice. You just got to watch you don't add too many excessive nutrients, and you'll get a algae outbreak in the tank. So I found that's just what I've stumbled across, and it's worked well for this particular tank. Every tank varies depending on what inventory is in there. How much? But I do love the phytoplankton very much.
Okay, so that's how you feed your tank. What about testing?
Testing isn't as bad as it's made out to be. If you can, I try to recommend that you test at least twice a week. If you're super busy one week and only can get it once, I mean, it is what it is. You have a big investment in here, so the easiest way to back up your investment, make sure everything's healthy and safe, is by testing. And nowadays, there's some really nice test kits that make it easy. What we basically check for here is nitrate, nitrite, alkalinity, pH, and salinity, and calcium in a reef tank. So,
and what numbers are you looking for?
Nitrates, we like 40 or less. Closer to 0, the better. Although you don't ever want it completely 0, because you want some nitrification going on in the tank for some certain species. SPS tanks, you have to have some in there for the tissue growth. In soft coral tanks, you could have it close to 0.05, which we have in here. It's almost 0 in here. Because of what we talked about earlier. Nitrites, you do want close to 0 at all times, which they usually will be in a mature tank that's well filtered and has live rock. Calcium, we want around 450 to 500. Alkalinity, 300 to 350. Salinity, I keep in a reef tank, usually 1.023 to 1.025. And in fish tanks, same thing, although you could take it a little bit lower in a fish tank, as low as 1.0180 even. That would aid in getting rid of some parasites too, if you ever lower the salinity in a fish-only tank. No inverts, no corals, you can't do that. And calcium, I think I said. The only other level you could check is magnesium. The only time I ever really worry about is my magnesium low is, we talked about earlier that your calcium will stay suspended if your alkalinity is low. But if you bring up your alkalinity and you still see your calcium's not dropping, then check your magnesium, and 9 times out of 10 it may be low. And what level are you looking for magnesium? On that, you're looking anywhere from 1500 to 1750. Keep them high, right? Yes. So again, like for me, I look at it and I wish I could have, right? So on this tank here, what do you wish you could have? I tell you what, and I'm not bragging, but right now, I've been here 7 years, and I have changed everything that I wanted to change on the tank. So I'm finally at the point where I'm happy with the tank, with the ecosystem, Refugium, the Euro skimmer in the Refugium, the Aqua Ultraviolet, UV Sterilizer, Julian Sprung's Boss Band reactor, and the Eco Ray LED light. And
yeah, but you got the package.
Yeah, I got the package.
There are some perks, right?
Yeah, it is. So we're real happy with it right now.